Betrayal at House on the Hill is an exploration Blind-Betrayal board game for 3 to 6 players. Published by Avalon Hill and designed by Rob Daviau, Bruce Glassco and co., Betrayal at House on the Hill is one of the best team-based RPG-like board games around, offering immense replayability thanks to its fantastic design. This extended review will take a look at some of the events and scenarios that can play out in Betrayal. While these light spoilers won't impact your experience of discovering the game for yourself, if you do wish to go in completely blind, please check out our shorter review. A game of Betrayal is split between 2 phases. After selecting a character, players begin with the exploration phase. You play as a group of characters exploring an old abandoned mansion, opening doors to reveal new rooms and expand the play area. Rooms themselves often contain symbols or text that activate events and allow the players to discover a range of items and omens. These can be anything from letting you reroll dice or attacking from far away, to offering stat buffs and potentially even saving your life. Explorers are on the search for useful discoveries that can help them later in the game, especially when the second phase begins. All characters in Betrayal have 4 traits: speed, might, knowledge, and sanity. Events often require players to perform a trait roll and to pass a skill check. The amount of dice rolled by a character is equal to the points invested in that trait. For example, the active player here is faced with the silence event and must make a sanity roll. With a sanity of 3, our player rolls 3 dice and rolls a total of 2. Unfortunately, that's not enough to avoid the consequences of this event and must roll 1 die of mental damage. One thing you may have noticed in this example is the unique dice. The dice in Betrayal contains 0 to 2 pips on any given side. That means that even if you have many points invested in one stat, it doesn't guarantee success. This is especially so in combat, but I'll get onto that later. When an omen symbol is found, the player receives an omen card and a haunt roll is made, where the active player rolls 6 dice. If the number rolled is more or equal to the number of omens currently found, play continues as normal. However, if the roll is less, the haunt phase begins. This does mean that the haunt can begin whenever the first omen is drawn, albeit unlikely. However, if this does happen, the scenarios typically require you to lay out rooms and items which are important to them, meaning that the game can still proceed normally. This is where the replayability of Betrayal becomes apparent. The haunt phase requires players to consult the traitor's tome, in which, depending on the last omen found and the location of where it was discovered, 50 unique and vastly different scenarios can play out. With the scenarios decided upon, one player will turn traitor and start working against the group. Remember before how I called this game a blind betrayal game? That's because there is no way to know who the traitor will be before the haunt begins. Each of the 50 scenarios has different conditions for who will become the traitor. Some turn the haunt revealer traitor, while others call out specific characters or make the person with the lowest or highest value in one trait turn evil. Or maybe even no one will be the traitor, or maybe multiple people may eventually turn traitor. It is random, and it is this randomness combined with the unique layout of the mansion that means you will never end up with the same game play out twice. You can have anything happen, from zombies and vampires to the house literally being grabbed by a giant bird and having to parachute out of it. It's a chaotic mess, but it's a really fun one. The traitor will then leave the room and read in secret his objectives from the traitor's tome, while the heroes proceed to read from the secrets of survival. Both books contain different information to one another, meaning that when play resumes, there is often coded language that begins to be used, hiding the intentions of players while telling them what they should be doing. Neither team knows exactly what the other team is up to, and it's this tension that really spices up the game. The once noisy table is suddenly speechless, and it's fantastic. Typically, the traitor will re-enter the room, silently following the instructions laid out for him, and begin setting up special conditions and rules for that haunt, while the heroes just look on with a perfect mix of intrigue and horror, wondering what on earth the traitor could be doing. Part of the fun of the haunt is just figuring out how the traitor wins in this scenario, which admittedly does lose its appeal once you've played the same scenario twice, but nevertheless is really fun.
Jack, why are you in this? Jack, you're the room that started the haunt, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Ah!
Good to know, Jack.
The game then proceeds to the player left of the traitor. With their own goals to win the game, players move and may explore as normal while conducting any special actions specific to the haunt. Players may still explore new rooms, deal with event cards, and find new items, which is particularly helpful if they must find a specific item to win. The traitor facing off with the other players at the table does become more powerful to compensate, however. They can elect to ignore event cards that occur during the haunt, but more importantly, can use any beneficial text on a room while ignoring its negatives, which can be a bit broken. For example, the Mystic Elevator allows a player to roll 2 dice, where the outcome decides where the elevator moves to. However, the traitor can just choose where to move it, and I think this power given to one player really suits the game well. It allows the heroes to easily rally against the traitor in this epic and over-the-top narrative. Most importantly, players may begin to conduct combat with the traitor and monsters alike, and while combat is not a massive occurrence in Betrayal, it is nevertheless handled very well due to its simplicity. Ignoring any modifiers and special conditions that items may introduce, combat is conducted by parties performing a might roll, with whoever rolling the lowest number taking damage equal to the difference. There is a nice level of strategy and planning to this system, as the damage is resolved by reducing the stat of the associated categories. You can split physical damage over speed and might, while mental damage involves sanity and knowledge, denoted by plastic sliders. If at any point any stat reaches the skull on the character token, that player is dead. Players who win combat by 2 or more can also decide not to damage the opponent, but steal an item or omen off the losing player instead. This can really decide how a game plays out in some cases, as items become very important depending on the scenario being played out. It is also important to note that players cannot die before the haunt begins. If a stat was to be lowered down to a skull, the stat reduction is ignored completely. Betrayal ends when either team fulfills their victory condition. While killing the other team can certainly help you achieve this, it is sometimes not necessary, especially for the heroes. On top of that, the traitor can still win even if they are dead, as sometimes their victory condition doesn't require them to survive the haunt. This is most often the case when monsters are involved, which are controlled by the traitor. And that's the game. Although it may seem complicated, it is a game where you pick it up quickly and can have endless fun with it. Playing with the same group doesn't get dull and boring as the game changes with each playthrough. Especially during the exploration phase, where everyone is working together, the table is lively with everyone talking about where to go next and what to do. Yet at the same time, everyone is still acutely aware that anyone could turn traitor with the haunt, so if they do want to risk helping a future enemy becomes a question on everyone's mind.
If you are the traitor, this result has no effect. If there is no traitor, all monsters move 1 space.
And I hope Jack's not the traitor.
I really hope I am the traitor.
Well, in my opinion, games are best when they encourage the table to get involved even when they're still waiting on their turn, hence my great love for games like Coup. This game highly encourages communication during both phases, even during the haunt when the communication involves actively excluding one of the people sitting at the table. But that's okay, because it just makes the traitor power feel oh so much more powerful and ominous than the rest of the table. It is intoxicating, and any player that turns traitor can feel the power they now hold. Brilliantly, however, the designers have been masterful in making Betrayal, as neither side is ever ridiculously more powerful than the other. Scenarios that pit teams against each other typically provide victory conditions and benefits to the teams that scale depending on the number of players, meaning that by introducing more people against the traitor, they are never at a huge disadvantage, and even in some scenarios can actually have a better chance of winning with more people. Games of Betrayal are not only incredibly balanced, but incredibly engaging. Before I did mention how the narrative in Betrayal allows the players to rally against whatever evil the house holds, but even in the flavor text on all the cards in the game, and the story elements that are read aloud to the group when the haunt is revealed absorbs everyone playing it. Even reading out the event cards is exciting, even if it ends up screwing over someone else. There is no other way to describe this game but just pure fun. And I do think I need to go over again how varied each individual haunt scenario is. Each scenario is rich with lore and special conditions for every aspect of the game. In the haunt Frog Leg Stew, the traitor controls a witch which, under the right circumstances, has access to a list of different spells to use against the heroes, including the ability to breathe fire and teleport herself. In the haunt Voodoo, the traitor assigns a list of voodoo dolls to each of the heroes, and giving that hero the flavor text of that voodoo doll, which in itself acts as a hint to where it's located. At the end of their turn, the traitor announces more flavor text and forces the player to deal with the consequences, which is unique to each doll. Where the hero under the wax doll must take 1 point physical damage, the stone doll requires the affected hero to roll for might, where if the result is less than the current number displayed on the turn track, the hero loses a point in each trait. However, the heroes are still greater in numbers and are able to work together to find these voodoo dolls and destroy them. Finally, in the Haunted Guillotines, the traitor is not actually announced but secret. All players are handed a numbered token, with the player receiving the monster token with a 1 on it being the secret traitor. On top of that, players receive a separate numbered token known to everyone, which tells them when they must roll to see if their collar, which they are now wearing, will decapitate them, which can only be removed by finding 2 of the 10 keys around the house. Yet the keys themselves can only be obtained in certain rooms, all of which have unique requirements and require you to do something unique to the room, like make a skill check or literally cut the key out of your own body. And if the secret traitor was to be killed by their collar, they can simply reveal themselves and ignore the effect completely. It's a whole new world to the other 2 I've just described, and if you aren't picking up this obvious parody of a famous movie or 7, don't worry, it's still an amazing game to play. Suffice it to say, the diversity that this game offers is astounding and something really special you don't see in many other games, and this is only 3 of the 50 paths this game can take. The range on offer does lead to a complete mess of tokens, however that's just a testament to the amount of content on offer for all of your replays your group will have, and if you have fallen in love with this game as my group has, you will be replaying it a lot. Betrayal is definitely one of the go-tos that my group relies upon. If we gather together and decide we want to play something that's going to be fun and doesn't require a ton of setup, yet it's going to be strategic and different every time, Betrayal is the perfect game for us to play. It starts out small and simple, yet quickly progresses to all these systems and functions happening on the board at once. It nails the build-up of mechanics as masterfully as it does the tension. It's the perfect game to introduce people to, showing newer players how games that appear simple in nature can be really deceiving. It's a hook, and a fine good one at that. Should you buy a Betrayal at House on the Hill then? Well, if you have a group of people who don't mind sitting at a table of upwards of 2 hours, even if they are getting completely hammered by debuffs and the like, then absolutely. Within the box is potentially hundreds of hours of gameplay and pandemonium that just leaves you wanting to play again. Your enjoyment will depend upon your group, however, just like any other team game, as it does thrive upon the antics between players. But if you have a group of people that can get along well, then it's definitely a must-buy for any enthusiast and a perfect addition to any collection. Thank you for watching this review of Betrayal at House on the Hill. This was the second in a 3-part series of pilots we plan to release. We hope to have the final review up soon, so if you like the content we produce, please let us know down below.